The grand ballroom shimmered with gold and ivory. Chandeliers sparkled above as violins played softly, filling the air with elegance and promise. Guests murmured with excitement, their laughter and champagne glasses clinking in harmony. At the center of it all stood Emily Hart, the bride. She was radiant, her white gown flowing like silk water, her veil glowing under the soft lights. For her, this was the day she had dreamed of since childhood. Her heart pounded with joy as she prepared to marry the man she believed was her forever. The groom, Daniel, was equally handsome in his tailored suit, his smile wide and confident. To the hundreds of eyes watching, they looked like the perfect couple, young, beautiful, and hopelessly in love. Emily's mother, Catherine Hart, floated among the guests like royalty. Stunning in a deep emerald dress, she carried herself with poise and grace. Guests whispered admiration as she glided across the floor, champagne in hand, greeting relatives and friends with a smile that could disarm anyone. But behind her smile was something else, something darker. The ceremony began. Emily's father walked her down the aisle, pride beaming in his eyes. Tears fell freely from the guests as vows were exchanged. Rings slipped onto trembling fingers, and lips finally met in a kiss that sealed their union. Applause thundered through the hall. The reception followed, a blur of laughter, dancing, and music. Emily twirled in her gown, her joy unmatched, while Daniel held her close, whispering sweet words into her ear. Photographers captured every moment, the kiss, the laughter, the cutting of the cake. To Emily, it was perfect. To everyone else, it was magical. But beneath the perfection lay a secret waiting to explode. As the night deepened, champagne flowed freely. Catherine danced with guests, laughed at jokes, and hugged old friends. But her eyes always drifted back to Daniel. Their glances lingered too long, their smiles a little too intimate. Emily didn't notice. She was too busy greeting relatives and basking in her happiness. But one guest noticed. Emily's best friend, Laura, caught the stolen looks across the room. She frowned, her stomach tightening with unease. Something felt wrong. Later, when Emily disappeared briefly to fix her makeup, Laura returned to the ballroom and froze. Through a half-open door near the back, she saw them, Catherine and Daniel, too close, too intimate. The mother's hand on his chest, the groom's lips brushing hers in a kiss that was anything but innocent. Laura's heart nearly stopped. She gasped, stepping back, her mind spinning. The groom, with the bride's mother. The scandal, the betrayal, it was unthinkable. And yet, it was happening. Laura rushed to find Emily, torn between protecting her happiness and telling her the devastating truth. But before she could, Emily returned, glowing and laughing, oblivious to the storm about to crash down upon her perfect wedding night. Across the room, Catherine and Daniel emerged, composed, smiling, as though nothing had happened. But secrets never stay hidden for long, and this one would end in blood. The wedding reception was in full swing. Music thundered, couples twirled across the polished marble floor, and waiters weaved through the crowd with trays of champagne and wine. The night should have been about joy, celebration, and beginnings, but for Laura, Emily's best friend, it was unbearable. Her mind replayed the image she had stumbled upon, the stolen kiss between Catherine and Daniel. Every time she looked across the room, she saw their faces, smiling as though nothing had happened. Laura's hands shook as she clutched her glass. Should I tell Emily? She thought. Or would it destroy her right here, right now? Emily herself seemed radiant, hugging guests, laughing loudly, glowing with love. Laura couldn't bear to shatter that happiness. Not yet. But silence, she knew, was dangerous. Meanwhile, Catherine floated through the crowd, her emerald dress shimmering under the lights. Every step she took was deliberate, controlled. Her smile never faltered, though inside her chest her heart pounded. She caught Daniel's eye from across the room. For a brief moment, his expression hardened not love, but possession. He nodded subtly, a gesture only she would notice. Catherine looked away quickly, sipping her champagne no one could ever know. Later that evening, Emily sat with Daniel at the head table, holding his hand. "This is the happiest night of my life," she whispered, eyes sparkling. Daniel forced a smile, squeezing her hand. "It's only the beginning," he said. But his eyes betrayed something else, restlessness, conflict. From across the hall, Catherine watched, her glass trembling slightly. The secret they shared burned like a fire, impossible to contain. Laura couldn't take it anymore. She cornered Catherine near the powder room, lowering her voice. "I saw you," Laura hissed. "With Daniel, don't you dare deny it." Catherine's eyes went wide, but only for a second. Then she composed herself, smiling coldly. "Careful, Laura. You've had too much to drink. People might think you're imagining things." Laura's stomach turned. "You're disgusting. She's your daughter." Catherine leaned in, her perfume intoxicating, her words sharp. "And if you care about Emily's happiness, you'll keep your mouth shut. Do you really want to ruin her wedding night?" Laura froze, torn between fury and fear. Catherine walked away, her heels clicking against the marble, her poise unshaken. But fate doesn't keep secrets for long. An hour later, the music softened as Emily searched for her mother. She found her not among the crowd, but on the terrace outside, the moonlight spilling over the gardens. And with her, Daniel. Emily's laughter died in her throat. Her eyes widened, her heart shattering as she saw them too close. Daniel's hand brushing against Catherine's arm, her mother whispering something that made him smirk. For a moment, Emily couldn't breathe. The night, once perfect, felt like a cruel joke. Her vision blurred as her world collapsed in silence. She staggered back inside, tears threatening to spill. No one noticed her distress. The crowd, too, lost in celebration. But in that instant, the wedding was over. Not in ceremony, not in photographs, not in memory. In betrayal. And betrayal, Emily would soon learn, had a cost paid in blood. The celebration inside the ballroom pulsed with music and laughter. But for Emily, the sound felt hollow. Her chest tightened as she slipped away from the crowd, her mind reeling from what she had just seen. Her groom, her mother, together. Emily pushed open the terrace door again, her breath sharp in the cool night air. The scene unfolded like something from a nightmare. Daniel and Catherine stood too close under the moonlight. His hand brushed hers, casual yet intimate. Her mother's lips curved into a smile, soft and familiar, too familiar. "Stop it," Emily whispered, though her voice trembled. Neither noticed her at first, but when Catherine finally turned, her eyes widened, freezing like a predator caught in the open. "Emily," Catherine began, her voice calm, smooth as silk. "You shouldn't be out here." "Don't," Emily cut her off, her voice rising. "Don't you dare." Daniel straightened, his face shifting from shock to irritation. "Emily, It's not what it looks like. Her laugh was hollow, broken. Not what it looks like. I just saw you with my own eyes. Catherine stepped forward, her emerald dress glimmering in the moonlight. Darling, listen to me. You've had a lot to drink tonight. You're emotional. Emotional, Emily snapped, tears streaming down her face. You're kissing my husband. The words echoed through the gardens like a scream. A couple of nearby guests turned curious, but quickly looked away, pretending not to notice. The party still roared inside, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. Daniel stepped toward Emily, his voice low, almost pleading. It was a mistake, just a moment. You're who I want, Emily. You're my wife. Emily's eyes darted between them. Her husband, her mother, the two people she trusted most in the world. And now, together, they had torn everything apart. How long? Emily demanded. Her voice cracked. Tell me the truth. Neither spoke. Silence stretched like a blade between them. Her stomach churned. God, has it been since before the wedding? Since before you proposed? Catherine's mask finally slipped, her smile fading into something sharper. You don't understand, Emily. Daniel and I don't, Emily screamed. Her voice shattered the night. You don't get to explain this away. For the first time in her life, Emily looked at her mother not with love, but with pure hatred. Laura, who had followed from inside, finally appeared on the terrace. She froze as she caught the scene. Emily trembling, Catherine defiant, Daniel caught between. Emily, Laura whispered, come inside, please. But Emily didn't move. She COULDN, single quotes, TOD. Daniel finally spoke, his voice colder now. What do you want me to say? That I love you both, that I made a mistake. Fine, but tonight was supposed to be about us. And instead, you're making a scene. Emily stared at him, stunned. A scene. That's what her wedding night had become, her humiliation on display. Her hands clenched into fists. Her heart pounded with fury she didn't know she had. You ruined everything, she whispered. And in that moment, Emily's pain transformed into something darker. Not just heartbreak, not just betrayal, something primal, something dangerous. And before the night was over, the rage she carried would spill out, and someone would not live to see the morning. The terrace felt colder now, though the summer night was warm. Emily's tears glistened on her cheeks, catching the pale moonlight. Her gown, so perfect hours ago now, felt like a suffocating costume. Her groom and her mother stood before her, silent, their guilt painted across their faces. Emily's voice trembled as she spoke. You were supposed to protect me, she hissed at Catherine. You were supposed to love me. Catherine's lips parted, but Emily didn't let her answer. She turned on Daniel, her voice cracking. And you promised me forever. On the altar, in front of God, in front of everyone. And all the while, you had already betrayed me. Daniel exhaled, his patience unraveling. Emily, stop dramatizing. It wasn't love. It was a mistake. A mistake. Emily's laugh was bitter, broken. You kissed my mother at my wedding, and you call it a mistake. Guests inside the hall continued to dance and drink, oblivious to the chaos unraveling just outside. The muffled music felt like a cruel soundtrack to Emily's humiliation. Laura stepped closer, placing a hand on Emily's arm. Please, let's go. You don't have to stand here, and don't tell me what I have to do, Emily snapped, shaking her off. Her voice was sharper now, louder. Drawing a few glances through the glass doors, Catherine finally broke the silence. Emily, you need to calm down before you embarrass yourself in front of everyone. Those words lit a fire in Emily's chest. Embarrass myself, she shouted. You're the one sneaking around with my husband. You're the one who should be ashamed. The tension snapped like a bowstring. Daniel grabbed Emily's wrist as she tried to walk past him. Enough, he barked. We're not doing this in public. Emily yanked her arm back. Don't touch me. For the first time, fear flickered across her face, not of heartbreak, but of what Daniel might do next. His grip had been too tight, his tone too harsh. Laura noticed too, stepping in quickly. Let her go, Laura warned, her voice firm. Daniel glared at her, but released Emily, his face twisted with frustration. You don't understand. None of you do. Catherine placed a hand on his arm, her voice low but urgent. Daniel, not here. But Emily's rage had reached a boiling point. Her breathing grew ragged, her fists clenched at her sides. She was no longer crying. She was shaking with fury. Her eyes darted to the table by the terrace door, where half-empty champagne bottles and silver utensils sat forgotten. The glint of a carving knife caught the moonlight. Laura saw it too. Her stomach dropped. Emily, Laura whispered, stepping between her and the table. Don't. But Emily's voice was hollow, distant, like she was already gone. She took everything from me, and he helped her. Catherine's mask slipped completely now. Her smile faded, her tone icy. You're weak, Emily. You've always been weak. That's why he came to me. The words cut deeper than any blade. Emily's vision blurred with rage. She lunged, Plora screamed her name, and in that instant, the wedding night shattered, no longer a celebration, but a battlefield. By the time the music inside faded and the guests spilled out in confusion, someone would already be lying on the ground. The terrace had fallen silent, the muffled laughter and music from the ballroom now distant, surreal. Every eye in the small circle, Millie, Catherine, Daniel, Laura, was locked on one another. Emily's chest heaved, her fists trembling at her sides. Her vision blurred as Catherine's cold words replayed in her head. That's why he came to me. The knife on the table gleamed in the moonlight. It seemed to call to her, a silent promise of justice, of vengeance. Emily, Laura whispered urgently, trying to block her line of sight. Don't do this, please. You'll regret it. But Emily's voice was hollow, distant. She ruined my wedding. She ruined my life. Daniel stepped forward, his face tightening. Emily, enough. Put the drama away. You'll embarrass us all. The word embarrass snapped her composure like glass. She lunged toward the table, snatching the knife. Gasps echoed from the few nearby guests who had wandered close enough to glimpse the scene. Laura screamed, Emily, stop. Catherine's eyes widened for the first time, not in guilt, not in shame, but in fear. Emily, think about what you're doing. But Emily wasn't thinking anymore. She was consumed. Daniel rushed at her, grabbing her arm. They struggled, the knife wavering dangerously between them. His voice was a low growl, tight with rage. You're ruining everything. Emily fought back, her gown tangling around her legs, her body trembling. Let me go. The knife slipped, grazing his sleeve. Gasps rose from the onlookers. Someone shouted, call the police. Catherine darted forward, her voice sharp. Daniel, stop her. Emily twisted free for a second, the knife raised, her breathing ragged, her eyes locked on her mother. "This is your fault," she screamed, charging forward. Catherine stumbled back, her heels scraping against the stone. For the first time that night, her polished exterior cracked. "Emily, wait." The knife slashed through the air, not yet finding its mark. Catherine shrieked, falling against the terrace railing. Laura grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her back with all her strength. "Emily, please, don't do this. You're not like them." But Emily was beyond reason. Her sobs turned into guttural cries, a sound born of heartbreak and betrayal. Daniel seized her from behind, trying to wrench the knife from her hand. In the struggle, he shoved her against the railing, her crown of flowers tumbling to the ground. "Enough," he barked. His grip was iron, his teeth gritted. The knife slipped again, grazing his hand. He cursed, jerking back. The blade clattered against the stone floor before Emily grabbed it once more. This time, when she turned, her eyes weren't on Daniel. They were on her mother. Catherine's face paled, the mask of control gone. For once, she looked vulnerable, weak. "Emily," she whispered, "I'm your mother." Emily's voice was a broken sob. "No, you're a monster." And with that, she lunged again. Screams tore through the night as chaos erupted. Guests rushed from the ballroom, gowns and tuxedos blurring as they stumbled into the unfolding nightmare. A waiter dropped his tray, glasses shattering across the marble. The music inside cut off. The celebration was over. The wedding had become a war. The terrace was no longer a place of whispered secrets. It was a stage, lit by moonlight and the glow from the ballroom, where betrayal and rage collided. Emily's white gown fluttered as she lunged again, knife gleaming in her hand. Catherine stumbled backward, her emerald dress dragging against the stone, eyes wide with panic. "Emily, stop," Laura cried, reaching desperately for her friend's arm. But the bride's fury had transformed her. She was no longer the trembling daughter. She was a storm unleashed. Daniel charged forward, grabbing Emily around the waist, trying to restrain her. They struggled violently, knocking over a table of champagne bottles. Glass shattered across the floor, the sound sharp as gunfire. "Let me go," Emily screamed, twisting with a strength Daniel hadn't seen before. Catherine, breathless, pressed against the terrace railing. She looked at her daughter, eyes burning with hatred, knife raised high and, for the first time in her life, Catherine realized she had no control. The struggle reached its climax in a single, terrible instant. Emily broke free of Daniel's grasp, her body spinning with the momentum. The knife came down in a wild arc. A gasp ripped through the crowd that had gathered at the terrace doors. The blade met flesh. Daniel staggered backward, clutching his side, crimson blooming across his shirt, his face contorted in shock and pain. "Emily," he rasped, before collapsing to his knees. The crowd erupted in screams. "Somebody call the police." "Oh my God," she stabbed him. Guests scattered in panic, heels clattering against marble, men shouting, women crying. The perfect wedding had dissolved into a nightmare. Emily stood frozen, the knife still in her hand, her breath ragged. Her gown was stained with streaks of red blood, warm and real. Daniel writhed on the ground, gasping for air. His hand reached out, but Emily didn't move. She stared, trembling, as if she no longer recognized herself. Catherine rushed forward, falling to her knees beside Daniel. "No, no, no," she whispered, her voice breaking, her hands pressed against the wound. her emerald dress soaking with blood. Her eyes shot up at Emily, burning with rage and grief. "What have you done?" Emily shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean." Laura pulled her back, wrapping her arms around Emily's shoulders. "We have to leave, Emily, now, before it gets worse." But Emily couldn't move. Her body was locked, her eyes glued to the crimson pooling on the stone floor. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Red and blue lights flickered against the walls as police cars barreled toward the estate. Guests crowded the terrace, some crying, some whispering, all pointing toward the bride. The bride did it. She stabbed him. She's gone mad. It was her own husband. The truth, twisted and raw, was already spreading like wildfire. Catherine cradled Daniel's face in her bloodied hands. "Stay with me," she begged. "Stay with me." But his eyes were already fading, his breaths shallow. Emily's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the floor, the knife clattering beside her. Her gown spread around her like a broken angel's wings, stained with scarlet. The night that was meant to mark the beginning of forever had instead written the end, blood on the floor, and no way back. The night air split with the wail of sirens. Red and blue lights danced across the garden walls, washing over the terrified faces of guests who crowded the terrace. The once lavish wedding now resembled a crime scene. Emily knelt on the cold stone, her gown stained with crimson, her trembling hands empty, now that the knife lay discarded beside her. She could barely hear the screams and gasps around her. Her ears rang with the pounding of her own heartbeat. Daniel lay sprawled on the floor, his breaths shallow, his eyes half-lidded. Catherine clutched him desperately, pressing her bloodied hands against his wound, whispering broken pleas. "Stay with me, stay with me." But he was slipping away. The first police car skidded to a stop at the estate's gates. 2 officers rushed through, guns drawn, their radios crackling. Behind them, another car arrived, lights slicing through the night. "Step back." Everyone stepped back. An officer barked as he stormed onto the terrace. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Guests scrambled away from Emily, forming a circle around her, as though she carried a plague. Fingers pointed, voices rose. "She did it. The bride stabbed him. She's dangerous." Look at the blood. "She tried to kill him." Emily shook her head violently, tears streaking her face. "No, I didn't mean I wasn't." Her words were drowned by the chaos. An officer approached cautiously, his gun raised. "Drop the weapon." Emily glanced at the knife lying beside her. For a moment, she thought of reaching for it, of defending herself against this nightmare. But then Laura stepped forward, her voice trembling. "She's not holding it's there, on the ground. Please, don't hurt her." The officer's gaze darted to the blade, then back to Emily. He signaled to his partner, who kicked the knife away before pulling out cuffs. Catherine's scream cut through the night. "Arrest her. She's a monster. She tried to kill him." Her voice cracked, raw with grief and fury. Emily flinched as though struck. "Mom, please." But Catherine's glare was ice cold. There was no mother in her eyes now, only hatred. The police dragged Emily to her feet, her gown ripping as the cuffs clicked around her wrists. She sobbed, shaking her head, her body collapsing under the weight of betrayal, guilt, and disbelief. Laura cried out, pushing through the officers. "Wait, you don't understand." She was defending herself. Catherine provoked her. There's more to this than you think. But no one listened. The story had already been written in the blood staining the terrace. Paramedics rushed in, kneeling beside Daniel. They worked frantically, applying pressure, shouting codes Emily couldn't comprehend. But with every passing second, the look on their faces grew darker. Finally, one of them shook his head. A quiet verdict, yet louder than any scream. Catherine collapsed over Daniel's body, her wail piercing the night. "No, please, don't leave me." Emily's legs gave way, and the officers had to drag her upright. She stared at Daniel's still form, her tears blinding her. Her husband was gone, and her mother. Her mother's eyes now promised only revenge. The officers pulled Emily toward the waiting patrol car. Guests whispered in horror, their glamorous clothes stained by spilled champagne and broken glass. The estate, once lit for celebration, now glowed with flashing lights and sorrow. As Emily was shoved into the back seat, she pressed her forehead against the glass, her voice barely a whisper. It wasn't supposed to be like this, but the night had written its own story, not of love, not of family, but of betrayal and blood. The police cruiser jolted as it sped away from the glowing estate. Emily sat in the back seat, her wrists raw from the cuffs, her gown crumpled and stained. The muffled chatter of the officers up front barely reached her ears. Her mind was drowned in flashes of the terrace, Daniel collapsing, Catherine's screams, the blood spreading across the stone. She pressed her forehead against the glass, watching the red and blue lights bounce off darkened streets. Her tears had dried, leaving salty streaks on her face. She felt hollow. Was she a murderer now, or just a pawn in her mother's cruel game? The police station was harsh and sterile, a jarring contrast to the opulence of the wedding hall. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Emily was led through metal doors into the holding area. Officers murmured, some casting curious glances at the disheveled bride. A crime of passion, her wedding night, was a headline too sensational to ignore. They shoved her into a cold interrogation room. A steel table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner blinking red. The walls were bare, suffocating. Emily sat silently, her hands trembling as the cuffs were removed. Her wrists were bruised, her dress ruined. She looked less like a bride and more like a ghost. Detective Harris entered, a man in his 50s, with weary eyes and a voice that carried authority. He placed a thin folder on the table and sat opposite her. Emily Carter, he said flatly, 24 years old, married tonight. He tapped the folder. And within hours, your husband is dead. Emily flinched. It wasn't supposed to. Then tell me what happened, Harris pressed. His tone wasn't cruel, but firm. Her throat tightened. She closed her eyes, replaying the nightmare. I saw them. My husband and my mother. They were together. I confronted them. It got heated. Daniel tried to stop me, but I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to stab him. Harris leaned forward. Emily shook her head violently. No, I swear. I just wanted to make them stop. Her voice broke. They betrayed me. The detective scribbled notes, his face unreadable. Multiple witnesses say you picked up the knife and lunged. They'll testify you attacked both your mother and your husband. Emily's eyes widened. They don't understand. My mother provoked me. She wanted this. She wanted me broken. Your mother, Harris repeated slowly. The same woman who claims you attacked her and Daniel without reason. Emily's voice trembled. She's lying. She's always lied. And now she wants to bury me for what she did. The detective sighed, closing the folder. Emily, I've been doing this a long time. I know grief, and I know guilt. What I need from you is the truth. Did you kill him in a fit of rage, or was this self-defense? Her tears spilled again. I don't know anymore. I just know. I lost everything in one night. Hours later, Emily sat alone in a cell. The bars cast long shadows across her face. Outside, the buzz of the station carried on, but inside, time felt frozen. She hugged herself tightly, rocking back and forth. The world saw her as a killer, but in her heart, she knew she was also a victim. Still, in the silence of that cell, one truth echoed louder than the rest. Daniel was gone. Her mother had betrayed her, and now the fight for her freedom had just begun. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and polished stone, its silence heavy with judgment. Rows of reporters filled the benches, cameras flashing whenever the bride was led in, dressed not in a wedding gown now, but in a plain prison jumpsuit. Emily sat stiffly beside her defense attorney, her eyes hollow. Every click of the camera reminded her she wasn't a bride anymore. She was a suspect. Across the room, Catherine Hart entered with an elegance that seemed grotesque in this place. Dressed in black silk, her hair perfectly styled, she looked more like a grieving widow than a mother testifying against her own daughter. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as she took her seat at the witness stand. Emily's chest tightened. The woman who had betrayed her so deeply now held the power to destroy her completely. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ms. Reed, stepped forward. Mrs. Hart, can you please tell the court what you witnessed on the night of your daughter's wedding? Catherine folded her hands delicately, her voice steady. Yes, it was supposed to be a night of joy, but instead, it became a nightmare. Her tone cracked just enough to sound rehearsed grief. She glanced briefly at Emily, then back at the jury. My daughter became unstable. She was drinking heavily, she was emotional, and she accused me of something terrible. She believed I was having an affair with her husband. Catherine paused, shaking her head as though the accusation itself was absurd. Of course, it wasn't true, but Emily was convinced. She began shouting, causing a scene. Emily's fists clenched under the table. Lies. Ms. Reed nodded, guiding her. And what happened next? Catherine lowered her gaze, her voice trembling just enough to appear vulnerable. She grabbed a knife from the terrace table. Daniel tried to calm her down, but she attacked him. I saw it with my own eyes. She stabbed him. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Emily shot to her feet. She's lying, she screamed, her voice cracking with desperation. The judge slammed his gavel, demanding order. Her attorney pulled her back down, whispering urgently, Don't react. They'll see you as unstable. But Emily couldn't breathe. Hearing her mother twist the truth so easily felt like being stabbed again. This time, in the soul, Catherine continued, her tears finally spilling in carefully measured drops. Daniel was the love of her life, and she killed him. I tried to stop her, but she turned on me, too. If the police hadn't arrived when they did, I don't know if I'd be alive right now. She dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Her performance flawless. The jury watched her intently, sympathy etched on their faces. To them, Catherine wasn't a betrayer. She was a grieving mother who had lost everything. Emily wanted to scream the truth, that Daniel had betrayed her, that her mother had stolen him, that the kiss Laura witnessed was real. But here, in this courtroom, her voice was drowned beneath her mother's lies. When Catherine finally stepped down, she walked past Emily without a glance. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air, sharp, suffocating, a reminder of the woman who had destroyed her. Emily's hands trembled. In that moment, she understood. She wasn't just fighting for freedom. She was fighting against her own mother's carefully woven web of deception, and the jury was already caught in it. The courtroom was silent, heavy with tension. The jury had been gone for hours, deliberating behind closed doors, weighing Emily's fate. Emily sat at the defense table, her hands clasped so tightly they were bloodless. Her attorney whispered reassurances, but her ears rang with only one voice, her mother's lies echoing from the stand. Across the room, Catherine Hart sat in the front row, dressed in her widow's black, a veil covering her face. To the jury, she was grief incarnate. To Emily, she was the executioner. Laura sat behind Emily, her eyes burning with helpless fury. She had told the truth, had sworn she saw Catherine and Daniel together. But against Catherine's performance, it felt like a whisper drowned by thunder. The bailiff's voice broke the silence. All rise. The jury has reached a verdict. The room stood. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs. The foreman rose, clutching the paper in his hands. His voice was steady, each word a hammer against Emily's chest. In the case of the people versus Emily Carter, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of manslaughter. The room gasped. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashing. Emily felt the floor drop from beneath her. "No," she whispered. "No, no, please." The judge's gavel struck order. "Sentencing will proceed immediately." Her attorney leaped up. "Your Honor, we request leniency," but the judge cut him off. His voice was firm, cold. "Emily Carter, for the crime of manslaughter in the death of Daniel Carter. This court sentences you to 15 years in state prison." The words crashed over her like a tidal wave. Her knees buckled, and she gripped the table for support. The world blurred with tears. Behind her, Laura cried out, "This isn't justice. She's not the killer, Catherine is." The judge slammed his gavel again. "Remove her." Bailiffs grabbed Laura, dragging her away as she screamed. "They're believing the wrong woman." Emily's eyes darted to her mother. Catherine met her gaze at last. For a flicker of a second, her lips curled into a smile, small, cruel, and victorious before she lowered her veil again. That smile would haunt Emily forever. The bailiffs seized her arms, pulling her toward the exit. The crowd parted, their eyes fixed on her as though she were a spectacle, not a human being. She stumbled forward, her body heavy with despair. She turned once, searching for any sign of hope, but found none. Her mother sat motionless, the jury whispered. The judge shuffled papers. The world had decided. Emily Carter, the bride who thought her wedding day would be the start of forever, was now a convicted killer. The prison transport van waited outside, its steel doors yawning open. As Emily was shoved inside, the cold metal bench bit into her skin. She pressed her forehead against the bars, watching the courthouse fade into the distance. The world outside moved, on cars honking, pedestrians walking while hers had ended. She whispered to herself, her voice shaking but resolute, "This isn't over. One day, the truth will come out. One day, she'll pay." The doors clanged shut, sealing her fate, and as the van pulled away, Catherine Hart stepped onto the courthouse steps, cameras flashing around her, her hand clutching a black handkerchief to the world. She was the grieving mother. To Emily, she was the murderer who had gotten away. For now,